Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss on the short story, uh, The Shroud by Prem. We know the fact that Prem was an Indian writer who was famous in the early 20th century. So we won't discuss much about the writer. We go through with the characters first. Uh, Okay, now under characters, uh, we are going to categorize them under two, the major characters and the minor characters. We'll first discuss on the major characters. Under the major characters, we have, two main major characters, Gisu, who is the father in this short story, and Madhav, who is the son. And under minor characters, I include uh, all the flat characters as well. Flat characters who don't play much role in this uh, short story, right? We first move on from Budia, Madhur's wife, the landowner, right, who borrowed or who gave money to the father and the son, right. The village landlord who also helped um, Madhav and Gisu in leading their life, even then, even when they were not working, right. And then we have a very flat characters, angels, right, Brahmins in the society, right. The sixth one, village merchants, and the seventh one, money lenders, right. The eighth one, people in the White House, and the last one, a beggar, right. Okay, we move on to the plot of the short story, right. um, the first one we are going to start is on exposition. Okay, now we are going to start the plot of the story with exposition. Exposition means how the story begins, right. And the story begins with the father and the son sitting silently at a burnt-out fireside, and the son's wife laying in labor inside the house. And this is how we came to know about in this story. So, by now everyone has read the story completely, right? And I hope that you know how the story started, and how the story move on, right? And which is the climax of the story, right? Okay, now under exposition, the story opens with the father and the son, looks so irresponsible, what is all happening inside the house. We also note to the fact that how the woman inside the house is completely in need of help from someone, right. But on the other hand, we can also see a father and a son, right, who are least bothered about what is all happening inside the house. Okay, and this is how the story started, right. We come down to the rising action, right. By now in this stage, we know about how the father and son, right, who looks very irresponsible, who are not good in anything, right, who are just behind eating, right, filling up the stomach, right, or they are very lazy, right, they are feelingless, they have no feelings for anyone, right, except for themselves. And the sad thing is that they have no sentiment for Buddha. Now we see how Buddha is as a woman, right? As a woman, right? She is a person who's responsible for her family, who take care about, or who take care, you know, the two men in this family, right? Okay, and she also take care about everything, in the house, right? And we also know the fact that Buddha was pregnant, right? And the next day when the sun rises, and when the two men, the father and the son, when they found Buddha lying dead inside the house, they just rushed to the great landlord Sahib, right, to seek help, because they have nothing in their house. And to do her final rites, also they need some money. So with that, they went to the landlord house, right? So the climax of the story is, uh, when they went to the landlord house, and the landlord gave them 2 rupees to do Buddha's final rites. And you know they feel like, or they try to show up as if they are going to do the final rites of Buddha. And keeping in mind, the landlord didn't say anything, he just gave the 2 rupees, right? The moment that the landlord gave 2 rupees is the climax of the story, because after getting the 2 rupees, you know they started showing their real color. you know they, as men, right, as men, they just try to show what kind of men they are, right? Okay, now both the father and the son started to go out to the market to buy Shroud for Buddha's dead body. And initially, they were, we as a reader, right, we as reader, we felt like, maybe, they look very sincere, right? But when they enter into the marketplace, right, they initially entered inside the clothes shop, right? But somehow by coincidence, right, or by accident, they entered into a wine house. And this is how the temptation started. They started ordering food, drinks, right? Enjoyed the moment, you know. So that is the climax. Okay. Okay. Now they were drunk, right? I hope everyone has, read the story. And they were completely drunk, and but the good thing, the positive side is that they have a kind of a feeling for Buddha. Okay, the feeling of gratefulness, right, and the feeling of kind of a gratitude towards Buddha, that they got all these food and the drinks, you know because of Buddha, right? And the money that they got from the landlord Sahib, it's all because from the money that they got from the landlord Sahib, they enjoyed the food that they have ordered, the drinks that they have ordered, and then finally completely drunk, right? Okay, uh, that is how the rising action, right? Okay, the next one is resolution. You know, to conclude the story in a very simple manner, right? they distributed all the leftover food, right? Especially mother, he distributed all the leftover food to a beggar who was standing outside the wine house, right? And um, somehow he also has the hope that the beggar will bless her, for the leftover food that has filled his stomach, on Buddha's name, right? So he also expect to the fact that the beggar should also bless Buddha, because the leftover food that that he's eating today, it's all because of Buddha, right? So you know abruptly we can see that how the story has a kind of a very you know uh, a male dominated scenario, right? Society where the men are always responsible for their own kind, right? um, the men are the one who always enjoys at the fullest, right? uh, okay, the next thing that we are going to discuss over here is on setting, right? And the setting, we have two, place and the time. And the place, we are going to begin with how the story started, right? And when the story started, both the father and the son were at their hut, right? you know mm, we see a very poor family, in this short story, right? Poor as well as lazy, you know uh, don't want to struggle in their life, right? And this is how they have lived their life, right? uh, we can also see the outside, where the two men were sitting at the fireside, right? And inside the wife, right? Or the wife of the son, right? you know laying inside in labor, right? Okay. And then in the second one, we have a flashback under place, right? We have a flashback where the father, right? Gisu, the father, narrated the story on on how the landowners' wedding processions were arranged, right? So the wedding was such a grand that they had so much food to eat, right? And they ate a lot. Especially, he just described himself that he ate a lot, at that time. And he just wished today. He just wished that he could have those food today, right? Okay. And then the third one under place, the third setting that we came is on at a landlord sahib's house, right? When both the father and the son found Buddha lying dead, right? And they just rushed to the landlord sahib house, to seek help, right? So that at least they can get some money, and they can buy short for Buddha's dead body to cover, and do the cremation and the rituals that they were expected to do, right? Okay, the next one is in the market, right? Once when they got the money, right, they started moving on into the market area, right? And then uh, they entered into the clothes shop, right? And somehow we as a reader, we also thought that they were somehow becoming responsible, right? At least for the rituals that they need to perform for Buddha's dead body, right? So when they just came out of the clothes seller's shop, right, the next place that they move on is into the wine house, right? So we saw the real color of the men, right? The two men in the story in the wine house, right? They were just very tempted, right? They were so desperate to drink, to eat, right? And this is, how the, setting of the place, right? Uh, that we can found, uh, you know, in the short story, right? We found this setting of the place in the short story. Okay, now the next setting, right, which is on time, right? Um, the story started when it was late evening, right? Uh, Even from the end of the first paragraph, right? How do we know that it was late evening, right? That is a question. Now, uh, if you have read the short story, right, you will come to know that from the end of the first paragraph, right, you can notice that in this line, the whole village has been absorbed into the darkness, right, which means it was late night, right? And you know when it was you know uh, and the next day, right, they found uh, Buddhia's lying dead, right? And this is how the story continues, right? And towards the end of the story, right, it was also late evening, right? In page number 5, right, towards the end of the story, right, as the darkness deepened and the stars glittered more sharply, right? So this was the scene where they reached at the wine house, right? And they were completely drunk, right? you know Even the time of the day, right? Or the time which is being described in the short story, right, from beginning till the end, also shows that it was all towards the end of the day, right? So it also indicates that it's the end of the life of Buddha, right? Okay. Okay, now the next thing that we are moving on is on themes, right? There are three themes in this short story. The first theme is on death, right? Uh, the death of Buddha. Buddha, who was very innocent, who was a responsible woman, right? And who also looks after um, the family, the father and the son. Mm, Even in her last day of her life, we also came to know, how she was being treated, right? Um, there was, no genuine feeling, shown from the father and the son, right? We see, how, the respect that she is expected to get from the two men in the family, right? We also came to know, how the irresponsible men in our society, or in the community, are also irresponsible to their family. Okay, so it's all about the death of Buddha, which has led the story of the father and the son to lead a very irresponsible life, even when they get, you know, 2 rupees, right? They get drunk, right? They just fill up their stomach. Okay, okay. Now we come down to the second theme: rich versus poor. The rich are the ones, if you move down to our, you know, uh, previous slides, mm, in our minor characters, right? Uh, the landowner, the wage landlords, uh, mm, even the village merchants, the money lenders in the village, right? Even the people in the wine house who can afford expensive drinks, right? Represent the rich community, right? The rich people in the community, okay? And uh, the next one, in our, the poor characters, in the short story, you know, Madhav, who is the son, right? Gisu, who is the father, even Budhiya, who is the wife of the, Madhav, right? Represent the poor characters in this story, right? So how the poor people, right? How the poor people in the community were unable to, fulfill the basic needs of the day, whereas we have the rich people who are rich enough to lead their life, who have lots of servants, and who can hire so many maids in their house, and uh, afford to provide daily wages to these workers, right? When we move down to our next previous slides, right? If you move to our previous slides, we know how the village landlords, the landowners, village merchants, money lenders, right? you know are very rich, you know so that even Gisu and Madhav were behind these rich people to seek help, right, to buy Shroud, right? Okay. Okay, now we come down to the next, or the last theme of the short story: selfish versus selflessness. Selfish represent Madhav and Gisu, right, the father and the son, who were very selfish, who just earn 2 rupees to buy Shroud for Budhiya, right? Mm, After her death, to do the ceremony, to do the rituals, the final rites. You know, on the other hand, we have selflessness. Budhiya, right? Budhiya, who just sacrifice so much, you know, uh, to serve her family, to serve the father and the son, right, in the family. But what happened at the end of the day, and even when she needs help from these two men in the family, was she completely denied, right? So that is another question, right, we need to know. Okay, so selfish versus selflessness, right? uh, these are the themes which completely define the short story, which also convey the message to the readers, to learn something, from them, right? Okay, now the last one that we are going to discuss is on the title, the short, right? The short symbolizes death and the custom. On the other hand, we can also say in one word, um, it symbolizes tradition, right? Uh, the shroud which is being used to cover the dead body, right, to do the final rites. The death of Buddha has demanded the father and the son to buy Shroud for her dead body. Okay, now the story as a whole takes us to how the death of Buddha also fed the lazy and irresponsible father and the son, right? Um, it's all because of buying Shroud for Buddha's dead body has made the reader to know the reality, the real color of the father and the son. When it comes down to responsibility, how are they responsible enough to serve or to fulfill, to buy Shroud for the dead body of Buddha, right? So towards the end, we also learned that even mother was somehow, you know, uh, tries to question himself that whether his father, who is trying to describe that a Buddha will be blessed, right, by the god or the goddess, you know but mother was unable to believe, because you know when they were expected to buy Shroud for Buddha's dead body, they didn't do that. In fact, they just enjoyed that money that has been meant to buy the Shroud, right? So somehow he has a kind of a guilty feeling within himself, you know, and when he gave the leftover food to the beggar, and he also expect the beggar to bless Buddha, who has earned the money to buy the Shroud for herself, right? In fact, they just spend the money in buying food and drinks for themselves.